Manchester United have just come through one of their biggest pre-season tests, and there is plenty to talk about this morning. United have drawn 1-1 with Paris Saint-Germain in Gothenburg, with Bryan Mbeumo once again getting on the score sheet. But while the performance has given Michael Carrick plenty of positives, one moment immediately had United fans worried. Mason Mount went down injured inside the opening 20 minutes. And that is not the only major story. Because we also have an important update on Mount's condition, Bryan Mbeumo continuing to make his case for a starting role, Youri Tielemans making his United debut, Vitek completing his move to Middlesbrough, a setback in the Lewis Hall pursuit, and fresh reports linking United with Inter Milan striker Pio Esposito. So there is a lot to get through. Let's start with what happened in Gothenburg. Manchester United faced the reigning European champions Paris Saint-Germain in Sweden, and this was always going to be a very useful test for Michael Carrick's side. And despite falling behind almost immediately, United showed enough character to come back and earn a draw. PSG struck after just 2 minutes through Ibrahim Mbeumo. It was a nightmare start for United, but the response was exactly what Carrick would have wanted. United gradually grew into the game, began creating problems for PSG, and eventually found their equaliser through Bryan Mbeumo. And once again, the summer signing was at the centre of the action. Mbeumo finished off a good attacking move after impressive work from Amad Diallo, bringing United level. The match eventually finished 1-1 for a pre-season game. The result itself obviously isn't the most important thing, but facing the reigning European champions gives this performance a little more significance. United were not simply playing against a lower league side trying to build fitness. They were facing one of the strongest teams in European football, and there were moments when United looked dangerous. There were also obvious weaknesses, but overall the performance provided Carrick with plenty to analyse before the new season. Sky Sports described the result as a positive continuation of United's pre-season preparations, while highlighting Mbeumo's equaliser and Mount's injury scare, and that brings us to the biggest concern. This is the story United fans were probably watching most closely after the final whistle. Mason Mount started the game in midfield, but lasted only around 20 minutes before being replaced by Tyler Fletcher. Considering Mount's injury history since arriving at Manchester United, it was immediately concerning. The last thing Carrick wanted was another lengthy absence for a player he clearly sees as an important part of his midfield plans. But there is now some relief. According to the latest reports, Carrick explained that Mount's withdrawal was precautionary after he had taken a kick. The manager did not want to take unnecessary risks during pre-season, particularly with the new campaign approaching. And Mount himself has reportedly reassured fans that he is okay. So at this stage, there is no confirmation of a serious injury. That is obviously the most important point. However, United will still be monitoring him closely, because Mount's availability could be extremely important to Carrick. The manager has already been experimenting with his midfield structure, and Mount has been used in a deeper role during pre-season. United have added Youri Tielemans and Andrés Santos, but there are still questions about the balance and depth of that midfield. So even if this latest Mount scare turns out to be nothing serious, it is another reminder that Carrick needs enough quality and depth across the squad. And speaking of that midfield, if there was one Manchester United player who once again walked away from this match with his reputation enhanced, it was Bryan Mbeumo. The forward scored United's equaliser, but it is not just the goal, it is the consistency. Mbeumo has continued to look dangerous during pre-season, and he is beginning to look like one of the players Carrick can trust when the competitive games begin. His movement is creating problems. His pace gives United another dimension. And perhaps most importantly, he looks increasingly comfortable in Carrick's attacking system. Against PSG, Mbeumo again showed that he can produce when the level of opposition rises, and that is important. It is easy to score goals in pre-season against weaker opposition. Doing it against one of Europe's best sides is a different test. The latest reports also note that Mbeumo has continued his strong run of form under Carrick. So the big question now is simple. Has Bryan Mbeumo already done enough to guarantee himself a starting position when the Premier League season begins? Right now, it is becoming increasingly difficult to argue against him. Another major moment from the PSG game was the Manchester United debut of Youri Tielemans. The summer signing finally pulled on the United shirt in a competitive-looking pre-season test against PSG. His arrival was one of the major midfield stories of the summer, and now fans have finally had their first opportunity to see how he fits into Carrick's plans. Tielemans brings experience, technical quality, and the ability to dictate play from midfield. But this is only the beginning. Carrick now has to work out the best combination around him. Does Tielemans play deeper? Does he operate further forward? Who partners him? And perhaps most importantly, does United still need another midfielder? That final question has become particularly interesting after the Mount injury scare. United have made additions, but the midfield still doesn't look completely finished. And that could become one of the biggest transfer stories during the remaining weeks of the window. Now let's move away from the pitch and into the transfer market. Manchester United have completed the sale of goalkeeper Radek Vitek to Middlesbrough. The deal is reportedly worth up to around £14 million, with the structure including an initial fee and potential add-ons. But United have also protected themselves very carefully. Reports indicate that United have inserted a 35% sell-on clause alongside matching rights and a buyback option. That is a very interesting part of the deal, because United clearly still rate Vitek. The 22-year-old never made a senior appearance for United, but his loan spell at Bristol City significantly boosted his reputation. Now he gets the opportunity to play regular first-team football at Middlesbrough. From United's perspective, this is potentially a very smart piece of business. They get a significant fee, they create room in the squad, and they retain mechanisms that could allow them to benefit if Vitek develops into a top goalkeeper. Reports put the overall package at around £14 million, with the 35% sell-on clause and buyback/matching provisions included. So don't be surprised if we hear Vitek's name again in a few years. Now we come to one of the more frustrating transfer stories. Manchester United continue to look at the left-back position, and Newcastle's Lewis Hall has been one of the names on the shortlist. United's interest in Hall is not new. Sky Sports previously reported that United were monitoring him as they look for a long-term solution at left-back, particularly with Luke Shaw entering the final year of his contract. But Newcastle's position has remained extremely clear. They don't want to sell him. Recent reports say Newcastle rejected an initial United inquiry and have informed the club that Hall is not for sale this summer. That obviously creates a problem. United can make an offer, they can test Newcastle's resolve. But if Newcastle genuinely don't want to sell, United may have to decide whether the player is worth pushing extremely hard for, or whether to move on to another target. And this is where the transfer strategy becomes interesting. Because United don't just need a left-back, they are also considering midfield reinforcements and attacking options. So how much of the remaining transfer budget should be spent on Hall? Sky Sports has previously identified Fulham's Anthony Robinson as another option, meaning United do have alternatives if the Newcastle deal becomes impossible. For now, though, Lewis Hall is not an easy deal. And finally, we have another striker story. Manchester United are reportedly interested in Inter Milan's young forward Pio Esposito, and this is one to watch. Esposito has emerged as one of the most exciting young strikers in Italian football, and United have been monitoring his development. Reports have previously stated that United scouts have watched him closely, while Arsenal have also been linked with the player. More recent reports claim Arsenal are currently leading the race, with a reported valuation of around £73 million. But here's the important part. United are not believed to be rushing into a massive bid. And there is a reason for that. Inter have repeatedly indicated that they want to keep Esposito. Earlier reports said the Italian club considered him a major part of their future plans, while more recent reporting indicates Inter have been working to secure his long-term future. So while Esposito is certainly a name United fans should know, this is not a done deal. It is a transfer situation that needs to be monitored. And if United eventually decide they need another forward alongside Benjamin Sesko and their existing attacking options, Esposito could become a name to watch. But at the reported price, this would be a major investment. So let's put everything together. United have just drawn 1-1 with the reigning European champions. Brian Mbeumo scored again. Youri Tielemans made his debut. Mason Mount's injury scare appears to be less serious than initially feared. Vitek has completed a potentially valuable £14 million move to Middlesbrough. Lewis Hall remains a difficult target because Newcastle do not want to sell. And United are still exploring attacking options, with Pio Esposito among the names being monitored. But there is one bigger question emerging from all of this. Is Michael Carrick's Manchester United squad actually finished? The answer appears to be no. The midfield still needs careful consideration. The left-back position remains an issue, and the club could still look for another attacking option depending on departures and opportunities. At the same time, though, there are genuine reasons for optimism. Mbeumo is looking dangerous. Tielemans has arrived. The team is competing well against elite opposition, and Carrick now has more options than he had earlier in the summer. The PSG draw doesn't mean United are suddenly ready to challenge for everything. It's still pre-season, but it does provide another indication that this team is moving in an interesting direction. So Manchester United fans, what is the biggest story for you this morning? Is it Brian Mbeumo's form? Are you worried about Mason Mount's latest injury scare? What did you make of Youri Tielemans on his debut? And would you spend big money on Pio Esposito, or should United focus on another position? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed the update, make sure you hit like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next Manchester United transfer update. Because with the new season getting closer, things are only going to get more interesting. Come on, United!